What is the most effective psychological trick you use? Doing something you're avoiding by just doing the smallest possible step. Like washing one plate. It cracks the procrastination paralysis and you usually end up doing the whole thing anyway. I literally gave my classmates treats so that they would stop being bullies. It actually worked. Edit. Gave them a treat every time they did something nice. I even did a survey for a class exercise to see what everyone's favorite lolly was. You can remind yourself to do any task by leaving a random object in the middle of the floor on your way out of the room. When you come back in, you'll see the object and remember why you left it there. Silence. It's so powerful. If I want to find out more about what someone is really thinking or feeling, instead of nodding along or using some verbal filler, I just don't say or do anything. It's amazing how people respond. So often as people we interrupt each other before things reach a deeper level. Plus, some people find silence uncomfortable and need to fill it. I've found out so much this way. Illusion of choice. Instead of saying you need to wash the dishes, ask if they'd rather wash dishes or do laundry. Or give a choice of time. Do you want to do the dishes now or in an hour? It makes a lot of people's brains skip the big answer, which is none of those. Ben Franklin effect. If someone doesn't like you, convince them to do you a favor or lend you something. It'll trick their subconscious into convincing them they like you. Very handy at work. I don't know if it's effective yet, but I'll try to make myself believe that my due dates for college assignments are one day before so I can pressure me and finish them on time. If you tell someone you need their help, they are more likely to do what it is you want or need, rather than you telling them to just do it. Hey little Jim. When you get done dinner, I need your help in the kitchen. Little Jim. Okay Dad. Shows up. Tell him you're loading the dishwasher. Put a couple of plates in and he'll help and then thank him after. Or, Little Jim. After dinner you need to do the dishes. Little Jim. Fuck off you old. Big difference. At work. When I know something is not working due to a mistake that someone else has made, I ask them if I've done something wrong or if I understand the process correctly. I find more people are willing to own up to something and fix it quickly if they are not made to feel defensive with direct accusations. I am a salesman who is afraid to call. Really, it is like a phobia. In my job you mostly hear a no than a yes and it makes me feel down. So recently I run into this technique when you have to take a no for your goal. Each morning I write 70 circles. Each time I hear no I color it, and this just works. Somehow your brain rewards yourself for a no and you don't feel like. Also, I never sounded so confident. I am not afraid to offer anything. I want this no. My results have never been this great so far. I want to use this method in regular life also. Help me to understand, or some variation thereof. I work in an office, and while I hate 99% of the dumb corporate buzzword Kool-Aid that gets passed around, I honestly feel like that phrase has a lot of merit. On a daily basis I'm having to collaborate on projects, pick up where someone left off, and in some cases fix an problem another coworker caused. It's really easy to start treating differences in procedure or simple human error as malicious or lazy when you're neck deep in it for 40+ hours a week. Why did you do it this way? Or, what's the point of this? May be more direct. But I found it puts the other party on the defensive and they spend more time trying to avoid making me upset than actually reaching a resolution. Asking them to collaborate and help me to understand how a decision was made or why a process was done the way it was is much more collaborative and productive. As an added bonus, I sometimes get a good insight into an unexpected solution that I wouldn't have thought of, and my coworkers don't see me as a growling ogre they can't come to for help. Predictability means safe. I am a school teacher with a high number of students with trauma. Major issues while getting my routines established. But they're now super warm to me because I am reliably predictable. I have 2 outfits that I alternate. A Mon, Wed, Fry, and a Tuesday, Thursday. Same greeting at the start of class. Same start to every class, etc. Have very transparent discipline too. They know exactly what gets a detention and what doesn't. If they can predict what will happen, they feel safe because they're in control of choosing their outcome for the day. Not sure if it's a trick, but I can ask my so to do something a million times. And the answer will always be later. But if I say, okay, don't worry about it, I'll go do it, he will do it immediately. After I woke up, I opened the fridge to eat my ice cream, but it has been eaten. I immediately knew it was my brother. If I asked him, did you eat my ice cream? I am sure he gonna deny lol, but what I did is, I told him I bought you an ice cream. Go eat it. Then he immediately said I already eat it. And you know what happened to him after. Whenever I feel myself getting overwhelmed, I picture myself taking problems and putting them in a box. Then later that night I come back to the box and deal with the problems then. When someone is on their phone, you can hand them anything and they will 100% hold it for you, laughing face. Yeah, anything. Ladies and gentlemen, a personal favorite of mine is the speak softly method, patent pending. If you end up in an argument and the other party is yelling, tone down your own volume slowly. Don't speak too softly too fast or you'll be seen as weak. Don't be too loud for too long or you're back to where you started. Just lower the tone of conversation down to an acceptable level. Maintain a calm and collected demeanor, and in no time at all your yelling match will have turned into a more or less amicable debate where you can resolve the issue. P.S. If you want to grab someone's attention via email, comment, etc., paragraphs are key. No one likes reading long blocks of text. Keep it short to begin and then people will be hooked, so you can make the paragraphs a little longer. One of the best ways to diffuse a conflict while also getting what you want from a person is to compliment them. Telling them that they are the qualities you want them to start being in that moment. And then they will usually begin to start acting like it all. The idea of a compliment throws them off and makes them want to listen more. And then the things you said which they are not will bother their ego, and they will usually try to start acting like the way you complimented them for being, because to not do so would prove you wrong and they would feel foolish. You can literally trick their own ego against them. This is also a great way to make enemies like you more. I've made enemies into friends using this trick. Dealing with kids is all about distractions. If a kid is fussy, describe the area of an invisible device that you installed that prevents fussiness. Go into detail about how you installed all the latest features. And specify the edges and corners. Confusion will occupy a kid's attention. Doesn't want to eat. That's a challenge race. Focus on the competition, not the food. I'm bored. Ask them if chopping off their toes will help with boredom. Incentives are how you sell the product. When I was younger and I wanted to get pizza, I was whispering pizza and showing my father a meme with pizza in it. Some time later my dad has this genius idea to order pizza lol. The human brain can usually differentiate between a fake polite smile and a genuine one. So I just put myself in my golden retriever's mind when meeting new people, and I can feel my face light up like, oh boy, new person. Friend. I've gotten better service at places and free stuff. Read this on a thread a few months back and it's actually surprisingly effective. If you're in the middle of a conversation, even better if it's a serious one, and you hand the other person something, they usually take it without question or hesitation. I think it's called the hairy arms trick. When I'm about to hand in the first version of a piece of work, I will leave a small but noticeable error that's easy to fix. It's always the error that my boss notices and suggests changing, which means that she feels involved in the process but also doesn't nitpick for something arbitrary to criticize. Okay. Well, I gotta get going. Talk to you later. Then walk away. Most people don't know how to react when you suddenly decide you're done with a conversation and leave. It works exceptionally well on people who will just keep talking. If you hard end the conversation, the brief silence will give you time to leave, hang up, drive away. Is it rude? Maybe. Is it effective? Yes. When I am in public, and I think somebody is looking at me, I yawn. Since yawning is contagious, they will yawn as well. One that I picked up from a friend of mine whenever he was trying to pick out dinner with his GF. Rather than ask, "What do you want?" and getting the typical, "I dunno anything" answer and then having suggestions shot down. Used it a few times in some of my relationships and it's the godsend question. When someone is upset, repeat back what they said. It helps them to hear what their words sounded like and isn't judgmental. Also, it makes you use their language instead of interjecting words they might associate with a different meaning or connotation, which leads to misunderstanding or defensive behavior. I learned this when I was in college and needed to diffuse lots of conflicts, while still staying neutral. For example, my roommate sucks and I want to move rooms. So what you're saying is that you two don't get along? No. That's not it. He's just gross and doesn't wash his clothes. It sounds like you have a problem with his habits, more than his personality. Yeah. I mean, who wears the same pair of underwear every day? Based on what you've said, if he washed his clothes regularly, you wouldn't have a problem living with him? Well, no. Then let's go talk to him and see what we can do to make you both comfortable living together, etc. Essentially, it keeps you neutral to both parties. Doesn't implicate you at all. Helps you understand the root of the problem and therefore work on a solution. I had this exact situation happen a lot. However, some Ross would agree and say the other roommate was gross, which made that resident feel uncomfortable. Or they would tell the one complaining to not be rude and suck it up, which would make that roommate feel bad. It was a lot of word puzzling to try and stay neutral when often you just wanted to shake one of them and say, "You are a problem." But unfortunately, that usually doesn't help situations. This also works great when you have someone going through mental health difficulties and don't know how to help them. I also had these conversations a lot as an RA. And even now as a teacher. I'm tired all of the time and I can't eat or sleep well. It sounds like you aren't feeling well. Notice it doesn't say depressed. You never want to diagnose someone, because you don't know what meaning they attach to that word. Yeah. But I'm not sick. I've just felt down for months. That sounds like you are struggling through a lot. I am. I don't know what to do. What I'm hearing is you need some resources to help you. Here, let me walk you to the counselor. Now they aren't always short or clear-cut situations. And sometimes people do need a good shoulder shake. But this helps you to stay calm and neutral during conflicts. If I want someone to agree with me for whatever reason, I'll subtly nod my head while asking them a yes or no question. It subconsciously primes them to agree. The trick is more potent if you get them to agree 2 or 3 times to really simple and obvious questions before the question you want them to agree to most. I use this trick for upselling at work all of the time. It works dangerously well if I use some nonverbal communication too. I work with a lot of people. And quite often they think that they somehow know better how my job is done. So, what I usually ask if they complain is, how would you suggest doing it then? And if they give me an irrational suggestion or something that's simply not possible, I ask them something along the lines of, and how do you imagine me doing this? This is usually the point where they realize that their ideas are probably not the best guidances when it comes to something they don't work with. Placebos work even when you know it's fake medicine you are taking. So I just convince myself that water cures pain. Harvard.edu. You can also use this on others. Basically, if you want to help someone that's complaining about having a headache and you don't have a painkiller, you just whip out a convincing speech about how most headaches are due to dehydration and loss of salt. Make sure to say you read Harvard research about this and just sit back and watch as a glass of water with salt starts to act like medicine. Works 9/10. And it works better if you are exact about it. Like 1 pinch of salt per 100 milliliters. It's all about the theatrics and grabbing attention. They call this the lab coat effect. People expect certain things from medicine. Trust through scientific research. Exact ratios and a foul taste are very much part of this. True story. Read about this in a Harvard journal. Add a little, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. At the end of each request. It's crazy how people will accept pretty much anything as long as you give them a bit of false liberty. Talk softer so people either de-escalate or pay more attention. Remember people's names. Greet them by it when you see them. Even if that's the only time this week you might. People really like it when someone remembers them. It's easy credit. I wouldn't call it a trick. But empathizing with someone goes a long way. If you can explain their perspective back to them in a way that actually proves you understand it, you have a much better chance of getting them to listen to your perspective. Fake it till you make it can really trick yourself into doing something you didn't want to do. For example, I really don't feel like starting on my report. Let me just pretend that I'm interested in doing it. Look over the data and act like I was getting any information out of them. And then next thing I know I was balls deep into my report. If they can do it, I can do it. Almost every single job, position, title or accomplishment has been achieved by someone that other people look at and go, how the did that moron make it to where he is? And if those morons can do it, I sure as can do it as well. I am not nervous. I am excited. Nerve killer every time.